He thought it was an airtight alibi, a YouTube live stream with timestamps and proof.
I just realized I'm literally going to be drinking and driving. In the game, by the way, I'm not leaving the house tonight.
But there's something this YouTuber forgot. Your internet history is never really deleted.
You give the appearance of being at home, playing Grand Theft Auto, and there is nothing to suggest that you were on that device between 6 o'clock and midnight.
And the receipts point to a sinister revelation.
Stephen, you're under arrest for murder.
This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespie. The holidays are generally a time to spend with family and friends, reflecting on the past year and treasuring the moments with our loved ones. And that's the exact message YouTuber Stephen McCullagh put out to his some 37,000 subscribers in December 2022.
I don't have too many loved ones in my life, but the ones I love with all my heart.
It was a complete shock then when Stephen's pregnant girlfriend, 32-year-old Natalie McNally, was found brutally murdered in her Northern Ireland home.
Listen, are you saying she's pregnant?
Yes!
And she's not breathing? Did you say she's cold?
She's cold!
Right, okay.
At first, detectives arrested Stephen, believing he was responsible. But when he provided an airtight alibi of 6 hours worth of a YouTube live stream, he was cleared as a suspect. It wasn't until later, when detectives took a closer look, they uncovered a terrifying truth.
You were telling the world that you were going to be live streaming on the 18th of December. There's no activity on your device between 6 and 12.
Today's scandal takes us to Lurgan, Northern Ireland, a large town in County Armagh. Lurgan was home to 32-year-old Natalie McNally. According to Natalie's family, she was a deeply loving person. She was the kind of woman who was always just a phone call away. She was there for her friends and her family when they were in need of a pick-me-up, someone who was there to support them in both the bad times and the good. And that's just what Natalie was up to on the night of December 18th, 2022. Natalie's boyfriend, Stephen McCullagh, hosted a YouTube live stream under the account VoteSaxton07. The channel had more than 37,000 subscribers, and Stephen often live streamed to them while playing video games. In the spirit of the holidays, he titled the stream on December 18th, Violent Night, Christmas. Natalie and Stephen had matched on Bumble back in August 2022 and started their relationship shortly thereafter. By November of the same year, they'd announced they were expecting a baby together, a boy who Natalie planned to name Dean. On December 18th, 2022, Natalie, ever the supportive and loving girlfriend, texted Stephen good luck with his upcoming live stream. At 8:24 p.m., she even logged onto YouTube to watch Stephen and his stream. She probably saw something like this.
It's Christmas, it's a time of togetherness, so like whenever I'm taking breaks, text a loved one, or a friend, or just, family member, someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. Get a little text and go, Merry Christmas, how's things? Maybe it's someone that you've fallen out with, or someone that you've just not spoken to in a long time, because, it's life gets in the way. Fire him a little text. Let's go. Merry Christmas. It's like what Bill Murray says at the end of Scrooged. It's never too late. Give someone a wee call. Or a text, I suppose, would be, I don't know, message them. Is that the correct way of speaking? I don't know. I don't have too many loved ones in my life, but the ones I love with all my heart. So, at least I've got that going for me.
These are clips from the actual live stream put out by Stephen that night. In the stream, he references a few key things, including an ongoing announcement that Stephen's chat feature wasn't working.
Well, because this streaming software is kind of up the left, it means I can't check the live chat. which is a real shame. So, by all means, talk amongst yourselves. I could use my phone to dip in every now and again and check it, but I've decided that I kind of hate live streams where people just sit and read comments and go, "Oh my God, yes, ask me questions." And also, if I go on my phone for too long, I'll end up just scrolling through TikTok, and the amount of time that I've lost scrolling through TikTok is unbelievable. So yeah, phone's away. Can't look at the live chat for some bloody reason, because if I do, it makes the whole thing freeze and OBS just screws up. Right, yeah, so I need to get my anxiety about whether or not the stream will crash just out of the way, otherwise it'll affect the whole bloody thing. But yes, if you have questions, comments, opinions, anything like that, tough. What I want this to be, right, is... Do you know, like, when you used to watch Big Brother back in the day? And, like, E4 had, like, a live stream that ran, like, all night and was just live footage from the house? It's kind of going to be like that. So, you know, like, you can dip in, you can dip out, that sort of thing. And meanwhile, I'm just going to be focusing on playing the game. All good? All good.
This is really important because when creators live stream, they're able to interact and chat and read the comments with their followers. They can react to them in real time. But Stephen says his chat wasn't working that day. He takes it a step further too, and even leaves the stream a few hours in to show he's taking a break.
Anyway, back in 5-10 minutes or so, go get yourself something to eat.
Is all of this just an excuse to bolster his alibi? Some of the subject matter Stephen discusses is bizarre too, including police brutality.
Like, I was reading somewhere recently, like, the amount of police force that we have lost over the last 12 years is just frightening, and no wonder crime is on the rise. That's why I like sticking to just doing crimes in a video game. Keeps things simple, mate.
At one point, Stephen even references making a crime look like an accident before saying Natalie's name in the live stream.
Yeah, that's physics. That's what would happen in the real world. Abso-notly. Abso-notly.
The stream goes on for about 6 hours until Stephen ends the live stream with this.
I think I'll wrap up this stream with none of you watching at all. Just by saying, Merry Christmas, everyone. It's a time that we look forward to and we get excited about whenever we're young. And then as we get older, we get much more cynical and stuff like that. And then we reach a stage where we realize it's not about us anymore. It's about the younger generation, and it's about keeping that love alive and passing it on. And I think that's something I'm looking forward to doing more than anything else, really.
About 24 hours later, after he doesn't hear from Natalie, Stephen heads to her home in Lurgan, and it's there that he discovers her body and calls the 999 emergency line.
Sorry! Is the patient breathing?
No! She's cold!
Okay, listen, what's the address of the emergency, please? Listen, are you saying she's pregnant?
Yes!
And she's not breathing? Did you say she's cold?
She's cold!
Okay, listen to me. I'm going to help you, okay? You stay on the line with me, all right? Okay, stay on the line with me. Okay, listen, if there is a defibrillator available, and send someone else to get it now in case we need it later. Tell me whenever you have it, okay? Is there anybody else with you who can go and get a defib?
No, there's blood everywhere.
Right, listen to me. I'm organising help for you now. Stay on the line. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do.
Natalie has been badly beaten, stabbed repeatedly, including once to her jugular vein. A medical examiner later determines she's broken multiple bones in her neck, indicating she was also strangled. On top of all of this, Natalie is found with blunt force trauma to the head, meaning she was hit at least 5 times in the face and neck. Tragically, Natalie and her unborn son Dean are both pronounced dead, and a murder investigation soon opens. Right away, detectives look at Stephen. He's arrested pretty early on, but quickly released when he provides an alibi, the 6-hour-long YouTube live stream that quickly takes investigators off his trail. During this time, Stephen plays the role of devastated boyfriend, openly mourning at Natalie's wake, making and posting a memorial video about the loss, and even pointing investigators in the direction of her ex-boyfriend as a possible suspect. Even still, some detectives have a weird feeling about Stephen. So despite this live stream alibi, they follow up on his whereabouts at the time of the murder and soon come to a grisly realization. The live stream that Stephen posted the night of Natalie's murder wasn't live at all. In fact, tech experts were able to determine that Stephen recorded the entire ordeal long before the night it was published. Remember when Stephen claimed the chat wasn't working?
The worst part is I can't even use my phone to check the live stream comments either, because I'm pretty sure that will with my internet and with this stream. So that's good, isn't it?
It's not that the chat wasn't working, it's that the video was recorded. There's no way to predict what viewers would write in the chat, so he just pretended like it was malfunctioning. That means when Stephen claimed to be going live, he was actually ending Natalie's life instead.
From 4 o'clock on Sunday the 18th of December, Stephen. I see you're studying the video there, I'll just give you a minute. Okay. So from 4 p.m. on the 18th of December, you were telling the world that you were going to be live streaming in 2 hours' time, from 6 o'clock till midnight. You had sent out a Twitter post and an Instagram post saying that you would be live streaming the Violent Night Christmas live gaming stream. Streamy goodness. You gave the appearance of being at home playing Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, on your device. Now your device has been examined. It was seized and it was examined. And there is nothing to suggest that you were on that device between 6 o'clock and midnight on the 18th of December. There's no activity on your device between 6 and 12.
Investigators soon discovered that at 4 p.m. on December 18th, the day of Natalie's murder, Stephen scheduled the live stream. At 6 p.m., the pre-recorded video goes live, and just a half an hour later at 6:36 p.m., Stephen is caught on CCTV video leaving his home in a disguise. Minutes later, there's video of him on a bus heading towards Natalie's home. Doorbell camera video later shows Stephen approaching Natalie's house at about 8:51 p.m. Nearly an hour later, at 9:31 p.m., Stephen is caught on the same doorbell camera, this time leaving Natalie's home. After that, he's seen hailing a taxi and fleeing the crime scene, headed back to his own home. It would be about another 24 hours before Stephen returned to the crime scene, pretending to find Natalie's body and calling the 911 emergency line. When investigators finally gather all this information, Stephen is arrested for the second time on January 31st, 2023.
Stephen, you're under arrest for murder. You do not have to say anything, but I must caution you that if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court, it may harm your defense. If you do say anything, it may be given in evidence.
Wait. Stephen, the stage is on suspicion.
About the entire ordeal, the Northern Ireland Police Service released a statement reading in part, McCullagh was very confident of avoiding justice for this and was playing the role of the victim across his friendship group, across the McNally family and the public in Lurgan. This young woman, a much-loved daughter and sister, was 15 weeks pregnant and excited to be planning the rest of her life as a mother. Here, he carried out a sustained and shockingly violent attack, which took Natalie's life and that of her unborn son. This was an attack that sent shockwaves right across the community. Not only was it distressingly brutal in nature, it was meticulously and coldly premeditated. a loving family are left with unimaginable heartache. They have lost their beloved Natalie and the baby boy they so dearly wanted to welcome into their family. Stephen was eventually charged with 1 count of murder, as Northern Ireland has no separate charge for feticide. Stephen pleaded not guilty to the charge, and his trial began on February 16, 2026 in the Belfast Crown Court. It lasted for about 6 weeks before a 12-person jury returned a unanimous verdict of guilty. On June 3rd of this year, a judge ruled he must serve a minimum of 31 years in prison. All right, so we know the outcome of the case, but how did we get here? I want to take a deeper dive into all of this. And for that, let's bring on today's guest. It's friend of the show and international attorney, David Tafiri. David, great to see you. Thank you for coming on Scandal as always. And let's kind of wind back the clock. Pre any sort of sentencing, pre any sort of conviction, at the very beginning, we have this woman, 32-year-old Natalie. She's found murdered. And something we say a lot in the true crime industry, I guess, is that phrase, it's always the husband, it's always the boyfriend, always the significant other. So do you think that's where investigators would start taking a closer look at the significant other?
I think so. And notably, the defendant also knew that. And so he actually tried to point the finger at her ex-boyfriend. And that was part of the obfuscation that he engaged in. But he was arrested twice. So originally he was arrested right away, apparently, after they came to her apartment where the body was, and they must have seen something that suggested to them that although he was claiming he had just come and found her, that he actually may have committed the murder. And then he, as you probably already talked about, used this way of creating an alibi. And then he was later, much later, re-arrested. So the police seemed to be focused on him from the beginning. The alibi convinced them it wasn't him at first. They also heavily investigated this ex-boyfriend that he pointed the finger at, and then led them eventually back to him.
Okay, we have to talk about the alibi because this is kind of crazy. You mentioned, so Stephen, the boyfriend, he's arrested right away. Investigators think it's him. Then he's like, wait a minute, hold the phone. I have this 6-hour alibi. I was doing this YouTube live stream. So they take a look and they're like, okay, yeah, wow, you were on YouTube, you were alive. Okay, I guess you couldn't have been committing the murder at the time. Great, good to go. Now, later, of course, this has a couple of holes poked in it, and that'll lead to his future arrest. But what are your thoughts on the fact that he went to such great lengths to create an alibi? I mean, it's 6 hours worth of him making this live stream. That to me screams premeditation. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's very unique, obviously, taking advantage of modern technology to try to create an alibi. It's an interesting way to try to do it. And I'm surprised others haven't tried to do this in the past. But of course, it ultimately backfired. And thankfully, the police and the investigators looked deeper into this supposed live stream, which actually wasn't live at all. And so this is one of the most interesting parts about this case and why I think it has received a lot of media attention.
Yeah, I think you're right, because so many people, we always have our phones on us. We're always using social media. I mean, we live stream here on Law&Crime all the time. I mean, it's something that people do. So you're right. It's interesting that we haven't seen more things like this. But to your point, it's great that detectives took a cursory look, and they're like, oh, wow, okay, so this guy has an alibi. But they were like, wait a minute, something here's kind of fishy. Let's dig a little bit deeper. And so it turns out that they ended up using their cyber investigation team to kind of crack the case way open. Do you think that's why it took an extra hot second before he was arrested for the second time and later charged?
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, they interrogated him numerous times, something like 8 times, I believe I read. And so they must have become suspicious. There probably was, significant evidence to suggest he did it. But then they had this really strong alibi that showed he was in a completely different place at that time, live streaming. And so eventually, I guess that led them to bringing in the right experts to try to investigate, could he have faked this live stream, which ultimately he did do. And it makes you wonder, did he know that he had this weakness? Was he worried that they might be able to figure out that it wasn't a live stream, that it had been pre-recorded? But it's still a very unique way to try to present yourself as in one place when you're committing a crime in another.
Yeah, it's all of it is, like I said, I think there's showing huge premeditation here. The fact that he went through and created this, that he presented this alibi to detectives and was like, hey, I wasn't even there. I was good to go. And I think the deception is really what stands out to me, and something that you brought up too, why a lot of people are really interested in this case, because we have the unique factor that he was kind of well known on YouTube, the fact that he had this alleged alibi with this live stream. And then on top of that, I just have to say it again, the deception here. I mean, the fact that he was very publicly saying, oh my God, I loved Natalie so much. He went to her wake. He consoled her family. He posted on social media talking about this tragedy. I mean, do you think when this eventually did go to trial, if you're one of the prosecutors, that you would highlight this, the fact that this is the guy who turns out to be the killer is also consoling her family?
Yeah, I think they absolutely would highlight that. And that was definitely, from what I read, part of the sentencing, decision, that it impacted the sentence that he got. The judge noted that he had, engaged in this behavior where he pretended to be, so to be mourning her, to be, communing with her family over the tragedy of it, to be, putting things out there on social media about how upset he was, messaging with his friends about her. I mean, he was a complete act. And I think that influenced the very significant prison sentence that he received.
That's what's so scary in cases like this, because if a tragedy like this happens, and we cover it all the time, there's a murder, obviously people react in different ways. We can't necessarily blame them. But if they're coming together with the family and, they're mourning the loss, you feel for them. And then when it turns out that they're the person who committed this act, it's so scary at the very least. And I guess if we're talking about how Natalie actually was killed, this to me, I'm wondering if you think prosecutors would really focus on this too. The way that she died, I mean, it seems so intense. There were multiple stab wounds, strangulation, heavy blows to the head, blunt force trauma. And to me, when I'm hearing all of those things kind of added up, it seems like this was a very intense crime and emotional. It's not like this was a sniper from, across a football field away, and it seems like a very intimate crime to actually have to strangle someone. It doesn't happen instantaneously. What are your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. First of all, this also does play into intent. And in order for the prosecutors to get a murder charge, they had to show both that he did it and that he, intended to kill her or cause serious bodily harm. And first of all, the way it played out, how violent the killing was, that he stabbed her and strangled her. I mean, there's no doubt what he was trying to do. Plus the fact that he had created this alibi in advance also shows intent. The way he traveled to her place in ways that he hoped he would not be traced. I mean, all of that went to help prove the intent. But the crime was brutal. And, part of that may be that it's very much harder to get a handgun in Northern Ireland and in the United Kingdom. And so maybe he wasn't able to get a handgun. With a handgun, it probably would have been maybe less violent in a way, a quicker death. But maybe he also wanted a slow death. And sometimes, unfortunately, you can see from the way the crime is carried out, someone intends to actually create, enhance the amount of violence because they're so angry at the person. And that is also probably maybe what the jury thought.
Oh my God. That's what I would be thinking in a case like this, when it's all laid out, the facts of how she died. And something that I don't want lost here, of course, we have a 32-year-old woman who died and didn't just die, she was brutally murdered. But on top of that, she was pregnant too at the time. I mean, is this something that would pull on the heartstrings of the jury even more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he killed an unborn child. Mm-hmm. Supposedly his unborn child. Yeah. And the judge noted that he intended to do that too. He was aware that she was pregnant. And so it also, makes you wonder, why did he do it in such a violent way when he knew she was, carrying someone inside her? It's really sad.
I mean, the facts of this case are really, really disturbing. And we've talked a lot about the prosecution because, of course, we know how the case ended. But let's pretend that he's just been charged. We haven't gone to trial yet, but we're preparing and you're the defense attorney. What sort of defense would you even come up with for this guy?
Well, notably, he did not testify. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because he chose not to testify and did not, he probably made that choice, or his, in consultation with his lawyers, because he did not want to be cross-examined, then they're limited in what kind of defense he could provide. What they tried to do likely is just pick holes in the prosecution's evidence and to, try to say that there's not sufficient evidence to connect him to the crime. I'm not sure if the defense lawyers tried to stand by the live stream or not. If they did, they would have had to probably have a tech expert to help explain that. Maybe there was, some of that went on where they were kind of battling over the technology. That could be confusing for the jury. Frankly, it was confusing to me how the prosecutors were able to figure out that it wasn't a live stream when it was presented as a live stream. It had something to do with how the data runs behind the live stream when it's recorded versus when it's a live stream. So you needed technicians to help do that, and they likely testified to help prove that. I don't know if the defense brought in their own experts, but they would have had to try to pick holes in that and try to keep the alibi and allow it to stand up.
Yeah, that's really tough to combat because you're right. I'm no tech expert. I'm just trusting what the experts are testifying to. But basically, it sounds like the data is different when you live stream versus when you record and post it as if it is a live stream. And that's what's so hard in so many of the cases that we cover. If there's a cell phone, a text message that's sent or your phone pings somewhere, it's kind of hard to combat something like that. And that's obviously what ended up happening here, that he was found guilty. But I do want to ask this to you. You mentioned something that it's more difficult to have firearms over in Northern England, Northern Ireland is where this happened. England too, but that's a separate thing. So, what are the other differences here? Do you think that the criminal justice system is pretty similar to what we see in the United States as far as the trial in Northern Ireland? Like, was it similar? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's very similar to England, and because they're both part of the United Kingdom, they both have common law systems. So in that way, it's similar to here in the United States as well. It's a common law system. In the United Kingdom, they have different courts. This would have been in the Crown Court, I believe, because it's a very serious crime. It would have entitled him to a jury, which he did have a jury. So it's a bit different in terms of its procedure from a criminal case in the U.S. and how it proceeds, but there are a lot of similarities, both in terms of the law and in terms of the process.
Yeah, you mentioned things like if he took the stand in his own defense, he would open him up for cross-exam, something we're obviously very familiar with here in the United States. He didn't end up doing that. However, a jury still ended up finding him guilty in this case. Are you surprised by the verdict?
No, I'm not surprised at all. Once the prosecutors were able to find out that this wasn't a live stream, and they, using tech experts, probably presented pretty strong evidence that it wasn't a live stream, then I think his whole excuse falls apart, and it becomes evident that this is a ruse. And after all, he is the one that pretended to discover her a day after he actually killed her, and there must have been substantial DNA evidence linking him to the crime. And so it was in some ways probably an open and shut case, especially because he probably didn't have much of a defense. If he did have a really strong defense, or he thought he would appear credible to the jury, or he could make an emotional appeal to the jury that would stand up with the jury, he likely would have testified, but he declined to do that.
Yeah, it's hard to combat if we have DNA, if we have cell phone data, if he had his phone with him and it was pinging in the certain locations. Plus, we've talked about this YouTube live stream. There's a lot that was stacked against him. I'm not really surprised by the verdict either. And I'm wondering if you're surprised by the sentence. So 31 years is what he was sentenced with. And here in the United States, obviously it depends on which state you're in, whether there's, death penalty eligibility, or if it's life in prison without parole, like with or without, whatever it may be. But over there, I feel like every time I talk to you, the sentences that they receive for crimes that over here would be, life, you're never getting out. It's a little bit different. So can you explain the sentencing to me, the 31 years that he got?
Yeah, 31 years is a big sentence there. Obviously, there's a little bit more of an emphasis there on trying to reform and rehabilitate someone after they've committed a crime. So the sentences can sometimes be lighter, but this is a very substantial sentence, 31 years. I mean, he's going to be pretty old when and if he gets out of jail. And so it sounds like the general public in Northern Ireland, I think, was satisfied. I think the family seemed to be satisfied. I didn't see anything from the family saying they thought the sentence should be longer. Although I think the family felt like, well, we have a life sentence. We've lost her for our lives. We've lost the unborn child, and the would have been a grandchild with loving grandparents. So I guess in some ways maybe they wish he got a life sentence too, like they did.
Mm-hmm. This one, I think, going through and hearing about her family, I've seen a lot of posts from her siblings or her parents. They do walks in memorial of Natalie, raising awareness for domestic violence. It's just so sad to talk about a case like this because it's 100% preventable. This did not have to happen. And it's really sad, the details that we had to go through and talk about today. But David Tafuri, I do thank you for walking us through the case.
Thank you.
And that's where today's episode of Scandal leaves us for now. If you like what you saw and you want to see more or connect with me on social media, you can find me on places like Instagram at Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.